brighter than ever, you know.
I'm always trying to.
And she has come on to the right side. She changed her side also. Always she is in the left side, and now she has come to the right side.
I always call it left or right. Right is always left, or left is always right.
Right. That's correct. Right is always right.
Left is also right.
Yeah, that's correct. We have to go like that. Otherwise, in the middle, the rail will get into problem.
Exactly.
We need we are anxiously waiting to hear you, Dr. Srinivasan. Before that, I want to tell you a few points. See, we have been on Tuesdays, we have been regularly meeting. Dr. Ravindra told me some suggestions which we have made in consultation with Dr. Indiraji and all. See, we have been discussing very much in depth. Many doctors, learned professors, eminent personalities, our research scholars, they are all in this group. Now, we need to codify each and every of the suggestion, however small it is, however small. Let it be so small a suggestion or a point which they are taking. You can say, I am getting aged. Then when he says, Shiva Akir says, don't worry, you are doing Kayakalpam and Meniyum Sivandidam. Abba Dr. Jayaprakash said, very good idea. You do research on skin. S-K-I-N, skin.
Skin in the brain.
Dr. Karthik and all are really working on it. So a lot of research findings are coming out individually. We need to go on, collect these things. Some scholars should assist us in codifying these important concepts or philosophies which are experimental results and the equipment used and what stage they have come. All these things are to be, one review has to be made for so far how much distance we have traveled, and then we can have one session. So this is what I made as a suggestion, and I hope it is acceptable to all of you so that we can proceed with the today's proceedings.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you, sir.
Now, I request our distinguished Professor Emeritus, Dr. A.V. Srinivasan, to share his ideas with us. Dr. Srinivasan, please.
Let's fix the timing. You want 15 minutes or 20 minutes? Then we leave the discussion, because I would like to fix the time.
30 minutes.
30 minutes, fine. Then in that case, it suits me, because I just wanted to, first of all, I'm indeed extremely happy to join this August forum to exchange thoughts. And I have been loving to get into one particular aspect. Yes, I think Professor Rangaswamy easily pointed out one particular point of discussion I would like to have. I'm just going through the certain portions, but I'll be concentrating on the circular hypothesis, which I have done it, and place it before the people so that how they can perfect it. Now, when we look at the spirituality, I always call it the mind, the brain. Mind is a web of thoughts in which the first strand of thought is I exist. The spatial sequence of thought has been well studied in the whole world. The temporal sequence of thought has not even started it, because it happens at 50 milliseconds level. This cannot be done by any new neuroradiological equipment throughout the world. Hence, we cannot fix where does it start the thought and where does it go. It is strongly believed that every thought arises from every tissue and then the world. So the mind and the brain interaction is very important for us to understand the knowledge that has come. And ultimately, it is the awareness of our own knowledge is beyond science. So let's not discuss it at that level. And I come to the spirituality is a part of complementary alternative medicine, I call it. Some people strongly objected to the word CAM, but I still use it as a complementary to medicine. It's a science of living. As Professor Keith Wallace very clearly said, the impact of meditation as a wakeful study showed reduced depression and insomnia. This is how it just started it in the beginning. And the recent studies of the medical literature initiated, there is a reduction in the arteriosclerosis. It starts from the cradle and goes up to the grave, which is one of the commonest causes of all the defects in our system. And in increased arterial size, reduced mortality, and we have all done with the specific spiritual applications, which I will not go through. But a lot of people have done original work in the neurophysiology by Ariander and Dr. Travis and the Brain Research Institute showed the presence of transcendental consciousness, and the research concluded that the coherent integration of the corticothalamic processing loop that leads to the global state of neural integration. This I want you to understand. It is ultimately the thalamus and the cortex which has a loop. Each one of us have got our own frequency. People who have got a higher frequency of this corticothalamic loop, they are at a higher point of understanding things and give light to the world at large. The lower level is difficult. The state of neural integration corresponds to a state of fulfillment, well-being, serenity, and happiness, and is associated with greater adaptability, flexibility, and creativity. Lot of applications have gone through the spiritual research, which I will not concentrate today, but I want to just go through only one portion of my talk today, concentrate on the yoga and the senses. It was generally believed that there are only 5 special senses in the human body. But the particular special sensation, we call it particular situation, where the United Nations parlance in 2005 and 2007 very clearly stated it is 17 senses and not 5. The PSI could not be acceptable until a quantifiable material, physical basis on any part of it. Hence, 5 senses theory prevailed over 17 senses theory. The biophysical receptors were added to the famous 5 senses. In 40 years so far, new disciplines are added, and the mixing science, technology, microscopy, subtle chemical exchanging, and electromagnetic and bioelectromagnetic ones. If you look through the selected research in yoga and meditation, all started with the Tibetan meditation in 1981, followed by inner science and world peace in 84. How might positive the emotions affect the physical and health conference. In 1988, it clearly showed the spiritual approaches to the addiction conference. In 1988, the cultivation of inner sense started. 1989, can lifestyle changes reverse atherosclerosis was a concept. 1984 and 5, body and contemplative experience was discussed. 1997, the theory of consciousness, Occidental and Oriental cause, both in Tindo-Tibetan Buddhism. And 1999, the physical and the psychological effects of meditation. A review of contemporary research and a comprehensive bibliography gave us a lead for us to concentrate on this. Now the phenomenology of the meditation is being done and successfully done, and the physiology, the higher work rate and decreased oxygen consumption per unit of work decided the physiological principle. There's increased cardiac vascular endurance and anaerobic power, positive mood changes with the decreased vulnerability to stress, improve the body density, and electrophysiological studies have been done on the EEG, electrical resistance SPECT and PEC studies. EEG is the only tool available for us when you want to measure the meditation and the changes in the brain. The rest of the things includes physical and chemical process. But Wagner was the first fellow to do that, and he said, first systematic electrophysiological study in a trained state of rest Mr. TSR, by Bagaji and Begner. And yoga and EEG, of course, Mallory said positively alpha abundance, negatively neurotics. So alpha is the running rhythm. Surprisingly, the sun frequency and the alpha rhythm coincide in our life. The sun has got a frequency of 9 to 12 and our alpha wave is also 9 to 12. The tumor effect will come to it now. And then the Simon, the drop of blood, and the East Christian science, they said it's a tears that is flowing through when they realize the Supreme Self. It was in Anand in India, 4 yogis, predominantly alpha amplitude increasing as the practice better. DOS and just and high amplitude fast waves are recorded, independent variable. This is the silence hypothesis, which was brought in 1971, classically by Robinson et al., who gave a clear-cut studies on Sufi, Zen, and Vipassana. When they found that the awareness-oriented practices, such as Alexander and Feldin and Curie, worked with Stephen Labridge laboratory process, psychologists from Stanford comparing short periods of inner silence and express speech. Chin activity was taken and brain waves are different in 2 conditions. This is the concept which I have evolved from so far the meditation concept. This forms my full talk. I wanted you to understand, I put it as a circular concept of this consciousness. If you put a linear concept, when you have a consciousness in especially the alpha wave starting at 9 to 13 and ending up with the 0 to 5, you can't connect it both, because we have found in a pure meditation, when you record the waves, the predominant alpha activity in the occipital lobe, they start getting the increased frequency of alpha activity and then get into the theta range. Normal people like all of us, when you are not meditating, when you are just having theta waves, you will become definitely sleepy feeling. From the theta wave, it gets into delta wave, we will be in the completely deep sleep. When a person has perfected the meditation, from the theta slow waves, when it comes into the delta waves, he is conscious. At that point of time, he still meditates and then makes the alpha activity to come into 1.5 to 2.5 cycles per second, which the people called as epsilon state. What is the objective of this epsilon state? In this state, the whole autonomic nervous system comes under our control. In a pure art of meditation, you can raise your heart rate, you can lower your heart rate. You can raise your body temperature, you can lower your body temperature. This has been stated in the Tibetan monks when they were sitting in Himalayas, when they were put on iced blanket, the time taken for them to dry the iced blanket by increasing the body temperature, which is something which is very worth, and they called it as the Tumos effect. It is the ability, if a man has perfected it, he can do it in very early way. If a man has not perfected, it may take a longer time. But there is no scientific data for us to say how many seconds it really took for them to reach the state. From the book, they only stated Tumos effect is the time taken for it to occur. If one has to go through these phases, like alpha, trains of alpha, theta, delta, and then into epsilon state, but there is a people, when the cognitive processing in the human beings, they start increasing, instead of going through this phase, they get into the beta phase straight away. We have recorded it in people who are highly contemplating and cognitive processing. And when they start doing the meditation, instead of going through this circle, they can come through the cognitive processing and get into the epsilon state fast. So you can remember, this is the point of impact. What is the offshoot of this? In normal people, when you close your eyes, the alpha beautifully appears. When you open the eyes, the alpha disappears totally immediate, which we call it alpha block. It occurs in the parieto-occipital junction. Now this recording, when you continue to gaze with eyes open, without thinking, without any calculation, without any emotion, then the alpha wave which have disappeared comes back in normal people. The ability to do it takes more than 7 to 10 seconds. One of my PhD residents who did this work, was able to bring the alpha within 2 to 3 seconds. Even he could not do the most perfect point, what I call that as blocking the blocking effect of the alpha. In other words, when I go into a very good meditative state, in that meditative state, the alpha block, when I open the eyes and I have reached the perfect point of meditation, the alpha cannot get blocked. It continues to maintain the alpha. This can occur in comatose patient. We call it alpha coma, theta coma, beta coma. But they have, when even when they open the eyes by ourselves, the alpha does not disappear. That's a comatose condition. Here, what I'm saying is, if you are able to block the blocking of the alpha, you will be able to appreciate the alpha not blocked and then appears once again. He will have a beautiful alpha going through in the deep meditative state, even when the eyes are open. What is the usefulness of this particular method? So when you do that, when you perfect it, this is what I wanted in India. I have searched for about 10 years. I have placed this request to so many people, including some of the people who have done some work on Nityananda and group. They are not showing the EEG record of the blocking of the alpha effect. But this has been mentioned. When you have reached a perfection in meditation, in other words, the meditation, you can call it as a perfection in meditation, in which the alpha blocking effect is totally blocked. 2, you will be able to generate through the cognitive processing. When you say cognitive processing, the definition of a cognition is perception plus thinking. We have no tools by means, because perception is beyond, it comes in with the awareness group. You cannot scientifically determine. Whereas thought, if you are able to identify the temporal sequence of thought, we can say which part of the brain really activates this the meditation perfection. How it really spreads. If one can do that, I think this is what I wanted to place it in this august audience, that if a man has perfected the meditation, I would like to show, it's not that I'm testing them, but it's an expression of my innermost feeling that India, even at the present point of time, capable of showing what the Tibetan monks have done it long ago. Now it's possible. Is it possible or is it not possible? We have tried with 2 or 3 perfected souls, but we could not achieve this blocking of the blocked effect. And the second point, I have not seen anybody reaching even the epsilon state. They are not able to get onto the noise. They were blaming 2 of the people whom I know very well. They say the noise was too much, peripheral noise, and they said the room is not there, and the sound is interfering with them to get into the state. I do not know, because I myself have not perfected the meditation myself. I am only seeing the scientific side of the meditation, and hence I am not able to understand. But so we started asking one person, can we have, because when there are so many wires connected to the brain and then record the EEG, he is disturbed so many times. Suppose if we were to have a cap, and then that cap is more than sufficient. One of the very brilliant person whom I know well, his name is Karthik. He is developing a hat-like thing which can be computerized into your iPod, so that you can record the EEGs and then show the world that the height of the meditation, you are able to bring the 1.5 to 2.5 state. This is something, the main objective of my whole thing is, I want you to bring this concept of how a good meditation person can block the blocking alpha effect. If that is done, we have reached a perfection in meditation. That person has reached 1.5. The question should not be asked that why should I do it for the sake of others, but it is for the sake of the science. And I always felt there is no question of science, and then the philosophy starts or the other spirituality starts. Science blends with spirituality. Science blends with psychology. It's a science. After all, basis of both science and then the psychology, or as a matter of fact, spirituality, basic unit is thought. And that thought, if it is going to be studied well, and that perfection of the thought meditation. Meditation without the thought, so basically in the brain first I thought comes, because the child does not have an I thought. At the age of 18 months, only child will start saying, Till such 18 months, I will always say, Shaker Kukudesh. You can give Shaker, you can give, but it will never say, give me for, please give me I. That I comes after 18 months of life, and we strongly believe that the mirror neurons are responsible for that. That's a different story altogether. But the main point is meditation helps to identify, and you are able to give a scientific evidence in EEG that this man has reached perfection in meditation and has brought down the alpha cycles to 1.5 to 2.5, and he is demonstrating the autonomic nervous system under control. This, if it is done, there is no need for him to have an antihypertensives at all. He can just reduce his blood pressure if he gets it. If he gets a hypertension, he can increase the blood pressure. If he gets fever, he just meditates and then the fever comes down. And probably that is another side of the story, which I feel everybody should think. We are all operating in 2 and 3rd dimension. I mean, 3 dimensions, length, width, and depth. In which case, our consciousness is constant, whereas the time is variable. So for all of us, past, present, and future are easily understandable. Now, for a person, if he operates mathematically, more than 11 dimensions possible, and when the 11 dimensions are possible, when you operate in 4th or the 5th dimension, you will notice very clearly the consciousness starts fleeting, the time is constant. In Tamil, we can call it Trinyana Jnani. When a person has reached the state, he can say past, he can say the present, he can say the future. Because for him, he operates in a period of no time and space. When he does reach the spot. For that, once again, meditation, whether we can reach that state by a pure art of meditation. That is the completely controlling the thought and getting into totally a different plane of consciousness in which you can identify what is happening to the people. Of course, the lot of people have talked about the electrical resistance. I just want to go through because I've already taken 25 minutes. The clinical applications of yoga, I just want to touch and then leave it at 5 minutes. It is very useful, not in acute stages. I am not suggesting meditation. You can't just say a person with a heart attack to go for meditation. It is meaningless. Acute medicine, allopathy is excellent. Ayurveda is a science of living and not a science of curing. The people of our country strongly believe the science of living, not the science of curing. So when it is getting combined, you get a beautiful result in anxiety. You get a lovely result in epilepsy, exercise, headaches, mental retardation, mood, and pain. These are all the different facets, different people over. Today's, I'm not touching those aspects in the brain structure and then the meditation effect. My only concentration effect today is whether anybody who can reach by any method, not only by meditation method, even by a Kundalini method, whether if you can bring down the alpha wave frequency to 1.5 to 2.5, that is the day I always call it. Perfection has reached in the world. And this I have given it in the Neurological Conference meeting in Ahmedabad, where I touched on this. And I wanted some really people who have got very good meditation. I have got a person who can do the electrophysiology and prove this point to the world that India has perfected the art of meditation, and it gives enough to the world. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Exactly 29 minutes. I once again thank for all the people, particularly Dr. Srinivasan and others. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Sharmavelu wants to come on the line. Dr. Sharmavelu.
Sir, you said all the extra senses and you talked more about the alpha waves through the EEG. And but I am very basic in the neurology. I recently studied about the limbic brain, the reptilian brain, mammalian brain, and neocortex.
Yes.
The neocortex is responsible for our consciousness, and our brain is waiting for the another evolution. And through the meditation, our neocortex may go to the next level to realize the consciousness in the subjective level. Am I correct, sir? I don't know. Whether
The concept of consciousness, you have to look at it from two angles. One, from what I mean consciousness is different from what the consciousness in the other people maintain it. See, scientifically, the consciousness is because of the thalamocortical circuit.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That circuit has got weak. Now, the whole brain has got only 6 hardwares. If you look at it, only 6 hardwares. All the other things are all only software. The first is a programmer, is a basal ganglia.
Now,
This basal ganglia is a programmer. He programs it and gives it to the, especially the computer, to calculate perfect smoothens it. That is cerebellum. And God has given maximum number of neurons only to cerebellum, not to the cerebral cortex.
oh,
It is actually tenfold rise. Third, it gives it to the keyboard is the cerebral cortex. These 3 things are coming under motor, spinomotor system. This is a basic explanation I want to give, and then come to consciousness. Now, number 4 is you have one system which is independent and connected. This cannot work without the sensory system coming from the periphery. You get a feedback in and you get a feedback out. At the time of any emergency, the nature cannot worry for motor and then the sensory. So it gave a system called autonomic nervous system to fight or flight. In which case you have to increase or decrease the heart rate, you have to run down everything. It is independent of motor and sensory.
that is
Nature,
reptilian brain.
that is by autonomic nervous system, both sympathetic and parasympathetic. It is useful. But one system integrates all the 3. That is limbic system, which you told you.
Yes, sir.
It contains more motor, sensory, and as well as the affective component. That is why affect is motor expression of emotion. So the consciousness is the sum total of all these motor, sensory, and autonomic functions. Now, when a person loses you have 2 components in consciousness. One is awareness. This cannot be studied by the science. The other is what we call it as consciousness, is motor, sensory, and autonomic. You can measure the consciousness part of it. So when a person also gets comatose, he has no awareness, he has no consciousness.
Yes.
The next step of improvement, he has no awareness, but he gets back the consciousness.
Awareness
He
of the
opens the eyes, and it is coma-like state. Then the next step is, so this we are talking about consciousness. I am not talking about that consciousness. I am talking about the consciousness is nothing but I consciousness. Everybody has. This I consciousness is the beginning story of the thought process. If you don't have I consciousness, then you can't have a proper thought and consciousness going. Now, it has been believed that autism, children, they are not developing I at all.
I can't.
They are almost like an Advaitic concept. They are the people existing in the world without the I. In general, all the people want freedom for the I. Everybody prefers the I want this, I want this, I want this. But nobody wants freedom from the I, because if you get total freedom from the I, you are a realized soul. So in terms of consciousness, see, we always call it physiological consciousness. The difference between the Occident and then the Orient lies in this consciousness view. We strongly believe in individual consciousness. They believe in collective consciousness. That's where the point of cleavage starts. Here the realization is for the individual, not for the world. So those things will come into play. But by and large, I want you to say that the consciousness is an integral part of the brain function maintained by the ascending reticular activating system, which carries the sensation to the brain and then the movement. Coming back to the brain, just I want to tell you, 1 million fibers of the pyramidal system in the brain controls the entire activity of the body. Entire activity. Now, nature has given 10 million fibers for the frontopontocerebellar fibers. The function of this has not been understood still. It is a connecting between the cortex and then the cerebellum, which is a small brain. Now, people strongly believe that that plays a crucial role in cognition. So, some of them, they say that really the God's effect comes through the occipital lobe, the back. This 10 million fibers, nature has already given the brain to the individual. Otherwise, the man is in possession of an organ called brain for 4 generations later. At that time, the nature cannot prepare the brain. So the anatomy has been already given to us. It is up to us to develop, because
Develop it.
10 million fibers are there.
Sir, that's what I said. The reptilian brain, mammalian brain, and neocortex, we are having at one stage. Through our effort only, we can increase the efficiency of that brain. That's what I
Exactly.
thought. So,
Absolutely.
what
Right.
I thought is correct. What you are telling is the same. So, if
Exactly.
we go on try, the humankind, if they go on try, naturally that brain, which is now vestigial structure, may come into action and it will become a dominant part. And one more thing about consciousness, sir. They are dividing the consciousness into two. One is, for certain people, the consciousness comes like a flash of light without any knowledge, but they get the consciousness and they get the realization. For some people, it's a hard work through sadhana, big sadhana, difficult sadhana, only they are reaching the consciousness. Have you got any idea about this flashlight consciousness and consciousness of sadhana?
No, that's what Aurobindo Ghosh also says. What
Yes,
you
sir.
have stated, Aurobindo Ghosh says, one man gets it in 1 second. One
Yes,
man
sir.
does not get it in 300 generations
Yes,
of
sir.
a rebirth and cycle. A realized soul, when they place their hand on the head, they say they take away all the karma of yours and become one with the universal consciousness. That has been explained by Ramana Maharishi when he does touches his mother's, and then she becomes. Same way with Ramakrishna Paramahamsa touches the head of the Vivekananda. He realizes what is
Oh.
actually. So I would rather say anything at the thought level. This is the distinction between the thought and beyond thought. At the distinction level, at the thought operating level, you get only invention. You can improve the invention. We are mixing very easily invention and creation. The creation is beyond thought. Invention is at the thought level.
Thought
So
level.
when you want to realize the beyond thought level, it can
Go
happen
back.
anything in a flat of second, because for them there is no space, there is no time. We are calling the time because the scientists have not yet perfected the physics of the time of the present.
Okay.
Now, when that comes into play, past and future are easily operable in human life. We all understand. But the present, you can't give a physical duration. You can't say 0.1 second. Because the moment you say present, PRE becomes the past, ENT becomes the future, yes is the present, which is a moment merging with the past and into the future. So
No
getting
future.
into the other side, 1 second and this one is operable only for people when they are operating at the time zone. So people who have reached beyond the time zone, it can happen nothing within 1 second, and anything can happen.
Sir, thank you, sir.
It is-
And I would like to meet you. We all would like to meet you again. I am having a lot of doubts, but I am not able to bring it immediately. So
Yeah, sure.
next time when you are coming, I will be coming with a lot of doubts, sir. Thank you very much. Really nice.
No,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much, sir. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Surely, we are going to meet, sir. There is no doubt in any of our minds. And
Actually,
let the
you
COVID
our
situation
thoughts.
settle down. I think, Doctor, we will invite him to Hosur also.
Yeah.
You have
Thank you.
opened a lot of avenues for discussion now.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In the
Right.
Hosur, what is
Excellent.
it? No, you said Hosur?
We are in Hosur. Myself and Dr. Sharma are in Hosur.
Hosur is a lovely place for me because my mom's sister lives there. My own nephew is the leader of the bar there. He was the lawyer. N.S. Sambasivam, his son, Vidya Bhaskar is the lawyer.
Vidya Bhaskar, sir. Vidya Bhaskar is my close friend, sir. We both
Vidya
started
Bhaskar,
our...
cousin is one. My mom is the eldest, and his mom is both uncle and that is my mama, marumanu, akka thangiya kalyanam pannirukka.
You are from Kadalur,
small
sir.
world பண்ணிட்டீங்க வந்துருங்க சார் இங்கேயே செட்டில் ஆயிரலாம்.
Sir, you are from Kadalur, sir. Are you from
Chennai.
No, his
Chennai.
wife, Bhaskar's wife is from
Kadalur, all right.
Our Appa Amma Kadalur, married my aunt's daughter.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Sir, only last week I met Vidya Bhaskar's mother. She was in the bed, but in
Yeah.
spite of that, she was kind enough to call me in, and we were talking together for a long time because
Yes.
I met her 30 years before when Sambasivam was there. After his
Oh.
death, I did not meet her. Last
Oh.
week for Ram Janmabhoomi collection, I went there. So
Oh.
he donated a huge amount also, and I met his sister and his mother. Both were
Yeah.
known to me for a long time. So
Yeah,
nice to
yeah.
hear from you, sir. Thank you,
Absolutely
sir.
nothing. My mother is the eldest.
Oh, yes, sir. Now I can understand. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
She's the next
Now,
younger.
Youngest, right.
Thank
now
you.
we will
Thank you,
move back.
sir. Just one word called Hosur. So much of data you have given. We will pursue this, and we are going to have you with us
Yeah.
shortly after this corona effect is subsides.
I'll be delighted to join you at
We now
Hosur.
move on to the. Oh, great.
Now let
Upon
us
our
come
Mahabali
back.
Rajan,
Now,
sir.
oh, 1 minute, Rangasamy. Let me invite Dr. Ravindra from NIMHANS for his comments or observations.
Sure,
Dr.
sure.
Yes, please. Dr. Ravindra Nahendra.
So good evening.
Good
Yes,
evening.
yeah, Ravindra.
Good evening. வாழ்க வளமுடன். Be blessed by the divine, sir.
Yeah, Varga Valamudan. Yes, Ravindra. Yeah, tell me.
Good evening to everybody and Malla Bhaskar sir. Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir.
So Srinivasan sir, you have really opened a very Pandora's box of meditation studies. Right?
Exactly.
And so we are from NIMHANS, and we have a Center for Consciousness Studies at NIMHANS. So
Yeah, I know.
we are doing quite a good number of work. And the blocking of the alpha block is what which you have mentioned. So that is one of the avenues to really to assess the meditation proficiency
Exactly.
that a meditator would have been acquired. But the most interesting part probably it will be that the process to understand how this blocking of the alpha block occurs.
Correct.
What you have told is the end point. So, but the process of reaching that end point is what from the the academic point of view, it will be very interesting to say that to see how actually these different at the different levels at these different neural network level it interacts so that that particular output will come. That is one thing. And secondly, important the other thing is also is the apart from alpha block and all those things, the new things that is now is coming. I mean that really we have to venture. We call it as a FM theta, that is frontal midline theta waves. So that is the one important thing which I mean gives a lot of input how actually these some of the subcortical structures it works, especially the part of the BMN network, the part of self-regulation, the concept of self-regulation, because the whole of meditation is about you are regulating yourself, right? So we are regulating our emotion, we are regulating our cognition. How is that our emotion and cognition are getting into balance? So the whole of this practice is about we are balancing our both emotion and cognition. Because these emotion and cognition are not balanced, that's why we are seeing a lot of this chaos in at the individual level and also at the social level. So how this process of self-regulation, right, with this meditation practice brings about will be very interesting, for which I think the frontal midline theta will be a very a window to understand the brain processes. Uh, yeah, that is one way. The second way, from the personal point of view, I know it's a very wild thinking. I don't know. We don't know how to do it also. Probably we should bring about a very big paradigm shift in the research methodology itself to understand the concept of meditation, because we are fitting the meditation work and research into the what the research methodology concept that we understand now. Otherwise, if you look at the the evolution of meditation or the philosophical aspects of any of these meditation school, their concept is entirely different, and the way that we understand the brain concepts are entirely different. So there are so many ways that we have to discuss. I mean, even to bring back some new thoughts to the neuroscience itself, how actually we have to assess these two. One of the most important thing is how do we reconcile the synchrony between the subjectivity and the objectivity. We leave alone the meditation for the simple things, very simple day-to-day life, mundane feelings that I get. Here we get a lot of subjective experiences. How apart from correlative study, how can we bring about a causality? Okay, that alpha increase can bring about the subjective experience, or beta will increase on the subjective experience. That is another big question. But the most fundamental thing about the question what you raised is of the concept of I. Where is this concept of I? Nobody knows. Where it is located, nobody knows. But we know that we all have the concept of I, and without that concept of I, okay, no, then the day-to-day activities we cannot do. You leave alone meditation. The day-to-day activities we cannot do without the concept of I. So so concept of self, concept of I, right? How these things comes is it's a wonderful field of study. But somewhere we have to start somewhere, so that if those are interested in multiple things and if they start at their start point, I'm very sure the parallelly many people, if they can do, we can converge at one point, where somewhere else. So otherwise, your thought of blocking the alpha block was a very good insight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, let me ask Dr. Bhaskar to give his ideas.
Dr. Malla Bhaskar, you can come on the line. You are getting unmuted.
Yeah, Valga Valamudan.
Valga Valamudan, sir. Welcome.
It's always a pleasure to listen to Dr. Srinivasan. In fact, whenever I join this meeting, I feel like a small elementary school child, learning different perspectives from all of you. I have a question to Dr. Srinivasan, maybe to all of you. Actually, it's not a question, it's a request. Hundreds and thousands of people go through the Sky meditation program at Aliar and maybe rest of
all over the
India,
world.
even all over the world. Maybe you can come up with some way, just like how we measure our blood pressure, blood sugar. You say easy is one method, but can we simplify, like simplified Kundalini Yoga? Can you simplify the way to measure meditation? For example, I have 2 DST grants to study the effect of meditation on people with epilepsy, and also to see the effect of meditation on hippocampal neurogenesis. My subjects, they practice meditation, but I really don't know what they're doing. Are they really meditating or not? I don't know. I'm correlating with neurogenesis. It's like without any objective way to measure. I request all of you to come out with some sort of simple way to measure whether the person is really doing meditation or not. And is it if we can come with some sort of score, some sort of method where without distractions, how much one can focus on meditation and to what depth, what level. It should not be very too complicated. It should be very simple so that we can implement starting from school children to adolescents to adults, and then say that this person has practiced meditation in the proper way. Those who are not practicing in the proper way, we can guide them. We can tell them that there's a better way to do the practice. I leave it to you for discussion. Of course, may not be possible in a webinar in a short period, but let us discuss and
Well taken, sir. In
thank you.
fact, this Tuesday meets have come only out of the problem which you have mentioned, how to measure the depth of meditation.
Yes, sir.
And we have started our discussion with this question in our mind.
Yes, sir.
So that is the very idea of inviting the neuro specialists into this forum. And we look forward for clues to develop a simple, easily practicable method to assess the meditation. Thank you very much, sir. Now, let me invite Dr. Mabali Rajan. Mabali Rajan.
Yes, sir. So, welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Welcome. Be blessed by the divine.
Sir, first of all, I think I'm very thankful to Dr. Ravindra, who kind of accumulated very big people in the neurological field. Because, I mean, we have been discussing this one for a long time. Ultimately, we thought that we somehow need, a big neurologist help kind of thing. So let me summarize what we were discussing for a long time, because we have come to a point that whether neurology understanding will help us to see how Kundalini yoga, in the sky meditation we call Kundalini yoga, whether it really activates the neural system and system or together neuroendocrine system kind of thing. That our question in the last discussion, our pointed question would be, I think many of you were aware that there is a, Kayakalpa yoga, so in which we have like Aswini Mudra. So where I think there is a contraction of the, perineal muscle, everything. So that's what we wanted to know. Is there any kind of master switch? Because you know that there is a 7 chakras are there in the body. That is a kind of, even though it's not a anatomical structure, but there is a 7 chakra, and we have, in the sky system we are always studying that each chakra is located where the endocrine gland is located kind of thing. So in that way, for example, starting from the Mooladhara, we talk about kind of steroid hormones, then going upwards like kind of prostate gland, pancreas, thymus, and kind of thyroid and pituitary, and above that, so pineal gland kind of. So this kind of this kind of is the 7 chakra. Our simple question would be, I'm not sure whether it can be whether it could be a foolish also. So is there any, definitely, because I'm a medical graduate, I did MBBS and then went to the PhD. There is no anatomical structure to connect the entire chakras. But there may be a physiological and biochemical connection in the form of the neuroendocrine network. And one of the network is already well known, that is a HPA axis, starting from hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis, that is everybody knows. But we wanted to know, by doing this Aswini Mutra, and is there some kind of master switch that present in the perineal nerve fluxus, and that send nerves to the all over the body in the form of the chakra, and that connect with the top glands like pineal and pituitary glands or something like that. We wanted to know, by doing this Kundalini yoga, everybody get benefited and every felt vibration is started coming. How this vibration is originated, can we explain by anatomical structure, or at least by kind of neuroendocrine network kind of thing? So as far as my understanding, based on the anatomical structure, the how this perineal, like where the kind of the Muladhara chakra is located, when we contract this perineal muscle, the kind of, so whether any perineal plexus is activated, and that perineal plexus has any connection with all the neuroendocrine work or not. So that was a kind of end of the discussion we had in the earlier way, the earlier week, because we wanted to know, as Sir was talking about, like how to measure that is a big question actually. That itself, it will take a long time to discover the big question. And still, I think we wanted to know, is there any kind of physiological or biochemical connection is there, so that I think we'll get some more understanding about this, why Kayakalpa Yoga is bringing mental peace and happiness to our mind. So this is a summary of our earlier discussion. Welcome.
Can I make two quick comments, sir?
Yes, please, sir.
First thing is about brain anatomy. During this webinar, I have a very strong connection with all of you. It's a very beautiful feeling that I am connected to all of you. If I open my computer, and then look at the parts in the computer, nowhere I'll find this beautiful feeling in the physical computer. So when I open the head and look for the structures, I don't think we'll find any anatomical substrate. That is one thing. The second thing is this perineal contraction. I think it will stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. As you know, parasympathetic nervous system is the one which will give us relaxation and happiness. I think that triggers the parasympathetic stimulation. Maybe this is where we have to focus rather than looking for something in the brain. We have to see we should be able to measure, we should be able to image somehow the parasympathetic nervous system. That will be the breakthrough of the sky research. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, one additional thing. You talked about the parasympathetic nervous system. So is there anything known, like parasympathetic nervous system affect that EEG, like whether it will convert from the beta to alpha, something like that? Anything known in that?
Dr. Ravindra, can you help me, please? My colleague, my colleague.
Thank you. Ravindra ji.
Sir, there are many ways, to assess the parasympathetic activity. Of course, the most prevalent way of especially is the cardiac parasympathetic activity through HRV. That generally it is very much measured. Okay, but the other thing is the parasympathetic nervous activity, does it help to convert one waveform to another waveform? It's very difficult to say, number one. And secondly, other important thing is the peripheral visceral signals. Okay, it can be from anal to whatever the visceral signals. Right? These visceral signals definitely, okay, they go and they encode in some part of the brain. because everything is connected to there. Okay. So now, when you say about the parasympathetic, generally we concentrate on the peripheral parasympathetic, but also we have the parasympathetic, the central network also. Right. So the earlier what the FM theta, which I told you, frontal midline theta, it has been shown it is correlated with the parasympathetic activity. So where you can increase the FM theta, and that is to increase in the parasympathetic activity. So these are all only at the measurement basis. But if you want to link these measures with the experience, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It's very difficult. As Sir was mentioning, you open the brain and you want to ask where I is and what the sensation. It's very difficult. It's not possible. I don't know. Maybe at this point of time. But the correlations are there. May not be the causality.
So, in the same line, I have because we must be knowing about this organophosphorus poisoning. That is there'll be more parasympathetic activation because of the more acetylcholine will be there in the system. So anything is known that when the person is having this organophosphorus poisoning, and whether that affect the brain function, kind of, because we know that when the moment we talk about the parasympathetic nervous system, one is organophosphorus poisoning, and the antidote is atropine. So anybody, demonstrated by taking organophosphorus poisoning that affect the brain. Almost they go for the loss of consciousness, and that loss of consciousness is not because of the, I don't know whether it's because of brain or because of the complete more
General
salivation.
effect.
Peripheral effect or central effect, we don't know. And the same way, like when you give a atropine, is a kind of parasympathetic antagonist. So under this two extreme condition, so what will happen to kind of consciousness and brain function?
Dr. Srinivasan sir will explain.
Yeah, I know. See, it's a very simple point. I just want you to understand the whole human body consists of only 3 neurotransmitters, very crucial.
Okay.
I call them as dopamine. I'll just come back to the answer last. But remember, dopamine is the Cinderella of the neurotransmitter, plays a crucial role from movement to motivation. That gets connected to acetylcholine and the noradrenaline adrenergic system. Now, these 3 are independent but interdependent.
Oh.
Now, each function, suppose you take, for example, in organophosphorus compound poisoning, it is a peripherally acting one to start with. When you cross the second and the third stage, you start getting the spasticity. In the initial phase, the reflexes are gone. Respiratory muscle paralysis. When in the longer run, they start getting the spasticity of the limbs. By just looking at him, we can now know a person who has developed spasticity cannot be said that he has not had a organophosphorus compound. Later stages of the illness, when he lives through the disease and come out, he gets a pyramidal sense. In other words, each and every neuron is totally independent but interdependent. In which case, the locally mediated neurons have got what we can call a sensitization of the central receptors take place when the periphery is affected. For example, when you prick, the pain goes into this. Exactly in a diabetic neuropathy, same thing. Then the brain, spinal cord, they get central activation. So once you get that, then all the signs of the cord comes, all the signs of the brain may come. And then the atropine acts at the both periphery and the central, because all said and then the reflexes are dependent on the acetylcholine mechanisms. So answering to your point that it does have an effect on the central nervous system, because everything has got a central nervous system.
Exactly.
Every cell has got a memory. Recently, we have shown when a person is transplanted his heart, different heart, he developed the memory of the previous person.
Okay.
Who had the heart? The heart was transplanted into him.
Okay.
He received somebody's heart and he is getting the memories of the somebody's person. So memory itself is stored in each and every cell of a human body. It's not that the memory is only in the brain. Memory is in the brain, memory is in the cord, memory is in the nerve, memory is in the muscle. So everything acted is upon what? Basically, it is I always call it Manidine Yekavadu Manama Molayan Keta, or a book I have just written. I have written it as Maname Molaya Yekagiradu. The mind is nothing but the thought. If I have to move my hand, I have to think. He beautifully answered, Ravindra. So everything is dependent on the thought. We have not yet localized the thought. Same way, we have not yet localized the emotion. We have not localized any fundamental area of awareness. See, for example, I am meditating. I should be aware of my meditation. If I am not aware of my meditation, the effect is very difficult. At the present point of time, the greatest limitation for science is awareness. Meditation, you can study the effect in all the cases. To study the cause and effect. For example, I'll tell you one case. I think he raised the point of epilepsy. Neurons, when they are chaotically in rhythms, when they are made to go in an orderly fashion, we do the MRI scan. The chaotic rhythm is brought into a normal rhythm. The time taken for the chaotic particles to go into the original rhythm is T2 weighted images. You are able to structure the brain only by using this. Why I am saying is this neurons, there are two neurons. The astrocyte, when it becomes synchronous, you get epilepsy. Not because of the neuronal hyperexcitability. The neuronal hyperexcitability is a secondary effect too. Because when I was a guest lecturer in Delaware University, I was an invited speaker. There they have done the original work of astrocyte spontaneously getting into synchronous state. In an asynchronous discharges, you don't get epilepsy. When it becomes synchronous, then they act on the neuron to produce epilepsy. Why I am coming to all this anatomical point, you should have an understanding of physics, chemistry, and biology. Myself and the person from ISRO, Pillai, we had a discussion how the physics, chemistry play a crucial role in our body. So answering to your primary point, we have to look at, is very difficult. That's the reason why I said EEG as one yardstick we can take. But you can't measure. Myself and V.S. Ramachandran tried to quantify emotion, which we could not go through. We wanted to quantify emotion. Pain is once again a subjective component. You cannot give an objective measurement except a scale. That depends on your mood and attention. If I'm in an excellent mood, I'll tolerate more pain and then give you a score of 3. If I'm in a very bad mood, then if the pain comes, I'll put it as 7. So the objective measurement of pain is dependent on a subjective attention and as well as the happiness, which is once again an emotion. So when you try to get into awareness, then the problem starts because there is no science. Even the greatest living physiologist for us, Mark Hallett from US, he is in charge of this entire motor and movement. Now, he himself accepts that awareness is beyond science. That is where I call it as, now, Schrodinger, the greatest scientist who lived during the period of Einstein. Einstein did not cross the limit of science. He just played well within the crease. He never wanted to come out and get stumped. Whereas Schrodinger clearly said, becoming is conscious, being is unconscious. That state, once you are being in being, no longer the thought operates. You are in the being, you are aware of everything. Then you become silent. Now, this is the point I wanted you to say, that the people who have reached perfection, they become silent. So, Varga Valamudan, same person, reached perfection, silence. They teach you through silence. So, but anyway, but the point I wanted to make was that central effect and the peripheral effect, they are all intertwined. Each is independent, but always interdependent.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Fantastic. Dr. Ravindra ji. can call upon the next. The speaker is Dr. Shakti has come in, with first he said he won't be able to make it, but somehow he made it. Dr. Shakti, can you come on? Yes, welcome.
I am still at work. I've just cut the work and be with you for a few minutes. I'm enjoying listening this debate. I think Sar has already mentioned being and becoming. As we go and dive deeper and deeper into physiology,
Your voice is very low.
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Can you
Yes.
just see your mic?
Can you hear me? I'll talk loud now.
Now you are
Okay.
better.
No,
Okay, go ahead.
everything, wherever we start, physiology, biochemistry, it will come to physics, it will come to atom, subatom, and after that, it is only imagination. Somebody mentioned, if you go back again in the evolution of science, from Galileo onwards, they have conveniently accepted there is a subjective phenomenon, but didn't go into that to explain because it is subjective, and they have from there onwards only try to describe the objective phenomenon. Even the whole way of how the scientific community evolved is based on induction, which is, if it has occurred in the past, it will occur in the future. Based on all the, if you want to prove something, it is basically an inductive methodology of proving. And therefore, when you look back in just in the last 400, 500 years, especially at the time of great thinking from Socrates and all the people, when they started questioning about mythology, religion, and the early scientific evolution, there is a time where matter and energy got separated. And energy was left to experience, and matter was subject to multiple studies. So I think the problem we have is, I think if we try and separate the experience from matter, then we are going to miss something, is my experience. The way of coming at it, there are a couple of things that are really coming to the fore in terms of research. And certainly we talked about it earlier on last week around epigenetics and the power of thought to actually change the way of expression or how the genes are expressed. And if you follow the cell biology pathway, power of thought, usually we think 95% in the automatic mode or pre-programmed way, and 5% conscious thought. When we are thinking consciously, we can only think either in the past or in the future, either planning or ruminating. But some of the meditative pathways, especially with fMRI and all of that, they have, I've just got a book and I can send you the references and all of that, because I'm also, like many of us, trying to prove. But once you start talking and writing, the meaning gets lost, or interpretation becomes again an experience. So this whole phenomenology of trying to express meaning in words and in models, we have a limitation. We have to basically, I think, whether it's a scientific community, spiritual community, philosophical community, faith community, that is the common denominator I think we have to start from. But there are some scientific investigation methodologies. I've been looking into magnetoencephalogram, and I am not an expert in any of these diagnostics, but I am a general physician, trained public health physician, trying to introduce some of the cultural heritage concepts for well-being. But I have been looking into this. Magnetoencephalogram appears to be providing some relative advantage over EEG in neuronal activity. The other thing really is cell biology and linking this with thought and habit formation, particularly the methylation and the histones and expression of genes, and how that can be linked with habit forming. And I just see this as part of mental training, particularly meditation. After a certain point, it becomes, I'll just read it, the concept, the Pathophysiology of Meditation. This is from Satbir Singh Khalsa, Lorenzo Cohen, Timothy. This book, The Principles and Practice of Yoga in Healthcare. I just so happen to be on a board with Satbir Singh Khalsa, who is also a Kundalini Yoga practitioner, by the way, but not Maharishi Yoga, Kundalini Yoga. They are trying to document pathophysiology and psychophysiology of yoga, and particularly meditation. I think it may be worth just thinking how we can link up. I have also asked, but they get into very research things, and we don't have the time whilst doing all these day jobs to pursue this. But there are accounts of how mental training develops from self-awareness and the meta-awareness and right into self-regulation. They're all linked, and these are all very well documented. Some of you may be already aware of, but the weakness of this is you can't really prove in a laboratory way. Some of this comes down to, again, experience. But there are some new modalities that I think we can look to, both from brain activity and magnetoencephalogram, and that's something that seems to be developing, and also from a cell biology perspective. So if we have got links even in small scale, pick seriously, sincerely practicing Sky practitioners and do some case control or some kind of descriptive study to start with, I think it might be helpful, because there is quite a number of research, but they're all old research here. And the diagnostic, the methodology, the tools that have been used, we have really far advanced tools now. So that's what I wanted to share, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Mr. Karthik.
Karthik, can you come on the line? Yeah.
Welcome, sir. I have a question for Dr. Srinivasan. It was, so when you first started with the conversation, I thought consciousness is a function of the physical entity in the brain from the occipital and in the physical areas. But then later, as you started explaining that with the Ramana Maharishi's references, when you touch, because of that, at that point, at that instant, the experience of consciousness is changing, right? So if that is the factor, then I'm finding it very difficult to relate with the initial part of your study, where you are relating consciousness with a lot of the, most of the physical activity which is going on in the brain. And at the instantaneously, at that point, the experience of consciousness coming in, how could that relate? If we take from the second, in this scenario, then is consciousness is just related to only the physical aspects, or is there something beyond the physical aspect in the brain? Or maybe some electromagnetic activity is also related with consciousness? Can I interpret that way? I'm in struggle, sir, based on your presentation in the beginning. If you can add a little bit more, add your thoughts on that, would be very helpful.
Yes, Dr. Srinivasan.
Yeah, sure. I'm glad that you are able to pinpoint this. This is the concept of diverification at the center point. Now, we are all accustomed to consciousness related to the brain functions, operating in the 3 dimensions. I would like to say that there is a universal consciousness and individual consciousness. At the individual consciousness level, the science answers this. But the main part of our consciousness, you've got a definite evidence for physiological function of a thalamocortical activity, each one of us have got. But that's not final. This has got to join with the universal consciousness because it is a speck from there. This will have a touch of some sort of a, you can call it either the Advaitic concept or a Visishtadvaitic concept. But the point is, this consciousness is residing in the I, which you have not yet understood. You can understand this consciousness only when you go to the fourth state of the consciousness. That is what I didn't want to go, because my topic I wanted to restrict only to EEG. Waking state, dream state, even in the deep state, you are aware of your consciousness. In two states of existence, of the human existence, you are not aware of your own I. That is, I call it as a tremendous area. Now, when you want to go to sleep, in all your activities, I predominates. Every activity, I predominates, including the dream and also the awareness. But in one act, when you are going, just getting into the sleep, you don't feel that you get into the sleep. You sleep off. That is where the I is totally disconnected and with the universal consciousness. The second point is when you wake up, you don't feel that you are waking up. The moment you wake up, then only you start getting within that milliseconds. This I call it as the two states of consciousness where the person is not aware of it. That is where when you concentrate, you will be able to understand the I. That's what some philosophers believe, that this point of meditation, you can use it by Kundalini method, any method, but the awareness is absolutely not there in these two states alone. In all the other states, I consciousness operates. When the I consciousness operates, you will only live in past and future. You can never live in present. If you want to live in the present, the I must go, and it should only be the universal consciousness, where the matter and the energy, when you look at it, the person who worked for 30 years on particle physics finally has resigned the conversion between the matter and the energy. If you look at the single word, which I always very love to name that, Satchidananda. Sat means it's a latent energy. Chit means it's a movement energy. When these two combine together, you get the articles of solid, liquid, and gases. That I, when it disappears with the help of the grace of the Guru, that is the 5 facets of the true Brahman. That is a true consciousness from which you get the spark of each and every consciousness, which can just come into you like a second, which was raised in the point. This Brahman, you can call it Brahman, you can call it light, you can call it any name, but that is the starting point of this, because I strongly believe that is the universal consciousness. You get a speck of it in your life. That is why you are not able to go, because awareness of that particular consciousness is the supreme consciousness, which is absent in these two states. I can only go up to this, but beyond that, any explanation of the truth is only an explanation, but not the truth. The truth has to be felt, and you will feel that absolute. You can call it universal consciousness. You can call it an universal energy. I think that is the success story one attains either through meditation or through bhakti or through Arya Yoga or through any yoga, including Karma Yoga or Kundalini Yoga. But the point is realization of the supreme consciousness, or within call it Brahman. We use Brahman, some of them use universal consciousness, some of them call it spirit and soul consciousness. But ultimately, the human being, the consciousness part of it, at the basic level, you understand. Once you come into this level, no longer you can give a measurement. Thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
sir.
Dr. Devi, do you want to say anything? Dr. Sutantra Devi.
Today, it has really been a stimulating experience, and I really, I'm very hesitant to talk in front of so many stalwarts, So, and really, like somebody said, we feel like school children, though we are all doctors and we have also studied about brain and in all that. But in front of these scientists and stalwarts, I'm really very hesitant to talk. But anyway, I'm happy that they have also agreed with, at least I'm happy that what I've been saying, that yoga is a practice of activating the parasympathetic nervous system, and so that the overactive sympathetic system is subdued, and then that is what it brings the good results. And today what I wanted to say was about Kaya Kalpa, but I think there is no time. It's already 10 o'clock. So maybe in
We
the
will
next
close
session,
it.
I'll talk about it. But anyway, I'm really thankful to you, Ravindra, for bringing such eminent scholars and giving us a really stimulating experience about the scientific aspects of consciousness and so many other things. Thank you.
Rangaswamy, you can conclude the session, I think.
Thank you, Doctor. It's a wonderful session today.
Of course, it is time for Indraji.
We say thank you to all of them. I think Dr. Indiraji has switched on, one is Guptaji was on the other side, and now again changing right to left. Come on, Dr. Indiraji. Now, Gupta has got up. Dr. Gupta, first time you got up.
He's ready to share.
I wrote some comments and sent it to Multhamani Yoga with a copy to Dr. Binda and then rest of you. Did you get that?
Yet to get it. We will go through it once we get it.
It's a very small email, but
okay.
It gives the consistent theoretical framework
for top down and bottom up, how they are linked.
So Dr. Srinivasan, I would add my understanding that where the interface is, you have to really define what is mind, because mind starts with the thought and it takes you to the consistent theoretical framework, how the Brahman becomes everything, how one becomes many. So that is one aspect. Then I agree with Dr. Ravindran, who says that we need a paradigm shift in our thinking, because I think that the bottom approach, bottom to top approach versus top to bottom, starting with defining Brahman and how the mind is a wave which will create the consciousness to function in the brain. So I would suggest that you please refer this small book about what is mind. Secondly, giving you an insight about Dr. or our Dr. Damodran. He's a trustee, WCSC. He experimented.
Done. Okay.
Experimented with this little booklet. Can the mind be measured? He has experienced the 1.5 to 2.5 frequency of delta with this system of meditation, where you take your mind to that level of understanding with consistent theoretical framework, the practice, experience, and your own research. So these four parameters needs to be combined with a theory. And this is what Vijay is trying to share in that little email that we sent.
Okay.
Questions?
Thank you.
please send an email to us.
Yeah, please do so. And we will collate all the information what you have given. Very useful. And the data will be codified, as I said earlier. Thank you very much to all of you. Anyone else?
Yes, yes.
We can give, those who are anxiously waiting to say a few words, 1 or 2
No, it
minutes
is-
we can give. Anyone? Otherwise, we are going to say, yeah. Come. Disclose your great name.
Sakti Saranai.
Mayalpuram.
Sakti Saranaiya. Welcome.
Welcome, Sakti.
Shakti.
You are not getting the line?
Yeah, I am there. I am very well there.
Yes.
So,
Carry on.
it's, a lot of
Time is
input,
running out.
Srinivasan today. So one I really love to hear from him. So this being is unconscious, becoming, that is the awareness. Of course, the state of awareness connects the reservoir. So you becomes whole. So then you are converted into holy. So you no longer, the I exists, so the identity lost. So I love that concept. I think lot many physiology thing about, he talked about the fiber, the 10 million fiber, how that is connected. And today, even the science using the light, how it gets connected, each address, how it connects the internal physiology. So I think a lot many things we can contemplate. I think this session was very useful. So I thank to Dr. Ravindra for again organizing such a wonderful event, sir. So I think a lot many work we can contemplate. Thanks a lot.
Sir, please
Sir,
unmute.
unmute your Rangasamy, unmuted. Sir, unmute. Sir, unmute. Rangasamy, sir. Please unmute and talk. Rangasamy, sir, unmute.
Okay. Thank you. In the course of our discussion, Dr. Malla Bhaskar Rao said we will have one instrument or equipment or something which is like, just like touch it and it will tell you where you are in terms of meditation. Am I correct, sir?
It's a wishful thinking, sir.
Now, I
Wishful
want
thinking.
to add one more minute. I have attended a couple of years before one conference, Vedic conference, where Dr. Shriter from UK came. He said, he specially said, Mr. Rangaswamy, you are practicing yoga. Yes, sit down here. I have a camera and I have a laptop. And I will tell you, I am a specialist in biofield science. 25 years I have done research. I will tell you what state you are in. I don't know what he did. A lot of waves coming out in multicolored and all that. We will share that whatever he has given to all of you. A special PPT program, what he has conducted. And possibly Dr. Bhaskar Rao can go through it, whether any meaning to what biofield science says. The same thing I heard from also from Dr. Deepak Chopra also said the same thing. This science is evolving. One has to look at it. So in this way, we will take on new subjects and see whether something will come out of it to prove our Maharishi's philosophies or scientific philosophies to the entire world, so that the next scientific conference we can prove with evidences. Thank you very much, Dr. Ravindra, for calling all of you, all the participants, including today's, I would say, chairman of the meeting, A.V. Srinivasan. Sir, you have to come to Osur. Thank you very much.
I will.
So thank you, everybody, and digest whatever has been told. And this has been a very close-knit group, and we must take it forward and record everything in your notebooks and come out with something on your own research. All the time we think how we can take it forward and make this wonderful vision of our Dr. Ravindra ji to a fruitful end. That is what is required. And thank you very much to all of you. And Valga Valamudan, be blessed by the divine. Thank you, sir.
வாழ்க வளமுடன். நமஸ்காரம். நமஸ்காரம்.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ravindranath ji.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks,
you.
Dr. Rangasamy.
Muthamani,
Thanks, Dr.
wonderful.
Bhaskar.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
You're linking.
No, I'm very happy.
The last to go will be Dr. Indira ji. Without telling me, she won't leave.
I'm very happy what is going on, how we are conducting everything. And I think that the ultimate aim is to experience Brahman that Dr. Srinivasan is talking about. That is the goal of everything. Thank you.
Our Dr. Ravindra ji, I'm an automobile engineer. He's charging my battery all the time. Actually, Dr. Sundraji wanted 10 minutes, but I don't know. She has finished within 3 minutes. Next week, 7 minutes will be given.
No, I wanted to say about my understanding of the Kayakalpa Yoga practice. A little more details.
We'll have it next time. We will have it next time.
Surely. This is an ongoing program, Doctor. And definitely we want more and more of your research data to be given to us, so that the future younger generation, as Dr. Jayaprakash said, the younger generation should benefit from us. Yes. That's a great idea, and we must take it forward. And I think every week I want Dr. Malla, Bhaskar Rao to join and ask for equipment. We will give you a stethoscope.
Thank you. Good day, good night. Stay safe.
Good night.
Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, doctor.
I don't know if